Hello folks and welcome to our game with myself, Shane Stapleton. As always, joined by Michael Verney. That music really would get you going on the Monday afternoon, wouldn't it?
Definitely put a little pep in your step, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. No, it's great to be back with the show. I'm sure people will have noticed the new little intro there, which we threw together over the weekend, just to try and get people buzzed up even more about it.
Well, Shano, let's call a spade a spade. We didn't throw it together because I'm technologically disadvantaged, shall we say?
Yeah.
And you're quite technologically advanced. So to be clear about it, you put it together, and it looks very well, very, very slick.
Well, as is typical of me, I didn't want to make it all about me, you know? That's the difference here. Look, huge amount of stuff happened over the weekend, and we'll get a couple of comments going. We love to do that, so keep your comments coming in. There's always bound to be stuff we missed out on. So we are going to be talking about Crusheen. Crusheen forwards were awful. Obviously, we were beaten by Clonlara in the first half. Big swings and getting hooked. Wood wides for that level. Would be what? Anyway, could be level, I suppose. Otherwise, Crokes and Dublin are outstanding. I would have actually said that Clonlara, I remember at least 3 times. And what was the inside forward? What was his name?
Michael O'Loughlin.
Michael O'Loughlin, sorry. He was one of 3 or 4 lads who was hooked going through on goal. And obviously, he bundled his goal home at the second or third effort. But I thought that Clonlara left 2-3 behind them in the first 6 minutes. Could have won it by a country mile. And like, fair play to Crusheen. They kept it tight. It was 318 to 216 for a finish. And it's the first title since 2008 for Clonlara. But I felt they could have won this well. What did you think? You were there.
Yeah, no, definitely. The 3 really good goal chances in the first 15 minutes. I'll just go through it here really quickly. So after 5 minutes, Jayton McMahon had a really good goal chance. He was hooked by Luke Hayes. A minute later, Donald Toohey pulled off a save from Colin O'Mara. Like, underneath his body almost. It was an absolutely outrageous save. So that was a minute later. Then the 15th minute, now the writing was on the wall at this stage, but Cian Dillon got in a really good hook on Ian Galvin after Galvin got the inside on him. That was after 15 minutes, and you're kind of thinking, Clonlara have left 3 goals behind here. Michael O'Loughlin's had a couple of bad wides even from frees, and you're thinking, if Crusheen can kind of turn it here and take their couple of chances, maybe they could get an advantage of 4 or 5, and Clonlara rude to miss those chances. But 3 minutes later, Michael O'Loughlin had that goal, really good pass from Ian Galvin. Then Colin Galvin got a goal before half time. And although Crusheen had a good fight back in the third quarter, like, Clonlara were much the better side. Like, they could have realistically had 5 goals. 5 goals would have been probably fair for their dominance. And you can say Crusheen had a lot of point scoring chances, and they did 11 wides in the first half, but there was gaping holes in the middle of the Crusheen defence, and it looked like a matter of time before they were eventually going to be breached. And just on that as well, John Conlon was really clever. He started midfield in both halves, and I think he won both throw-ins or was involved in getting possession of both throw-ins. But he moved centre forward, but he played anywhere but centre forward, and he forced Ross Hayes, who was centre back for Crusheen, to kind of track him, because they could not going to leave Conlon free, and it just left a gaping hole at the centre of the Crusheen defence. And if you compare that to the other end, Dylan McMahon at centre back for Clonlara always stood his ground and was nearly always the +1 at the back. They looked a lot more solid in defence than Crusheen did. But no, to me, Clonlara were probably 8 or 9 points the better team, and it was only, I'd say, a bit of heart and a bit of guts from Crusheen that kept them in it in that third quarter, really.
Yeah, no, great stuff from them. I mean, the cup is named after Canon Hamilton, not Camel Hamilton. Canon Hamilton, who was born 200 metres from Clonlara's pitch, so they're delighted to bring that home. 3rd time ever that they've won it. But Donald Madden, you could see how delighted he was on the final whistle. Now, you might tell us, number 1, what it was like on the final whistle, and number 2, why Donald Madden, why this meant so much to him as manager of Clonlara.
Yeah, pitches after county final successes are always kind of a mad kind of scene, but it was particularly mad yesterday. You know, you're waiting to get talking to somebody or hopefully grab someone for a word. I actually felt bad, like, going near anyone for the first 15 minutes because they were just enjoying it that much, and there was all sorts of different pictures. There was, I think they had their kit man up on their shoulders. There was a real good picture with nearly the whole of Clonlara, just towards the side of the pitch in front of the stand. Then they moved over further away, and yeah, it was just really, really kind of emotional kind of scene, because if you'd said 15 years ago when they won in 08, you're thinking Clonlara are going to win a couple here. And I think a lot of that comes back to Donald Madden, and he was very emotional after. In 09, they were a couple of points up against Cratloe at the very end of the game. The ball breaks in around the 13, time nearly up. Him and Dara Conan are in around the ball, and the ball ends up going out to Madden. He brings it out near the corner flag, and he tries to recycle possession. but he hits it about 65 yards back, trying to recycle it to create a point or whatever, hold on to the ball. It ends up in Cratloe hands. Ball ends up in at the edge of the square. Cratloe get a goal and win the county title, and Clonlara haven't won one since. So he actually, just in an interview after, he pointed over to the corner and said he's been 14 years trying to right that wrong, and he fairly wrote that wrong yesterday anyway. And you could see how relieved he was, just because, like, you carry things like that around with you, and probably mentioned to him fairly regular, I'd say, as well. And now he's won and drove them forward from the sideline, even though he wouldn't take too much credit. Seems like a very humble fella. Someone said to him after, he said, you did this, you guided these lads here. And he just said, well, I'm one of 40, so I only gave 2.5%. That was the way he was talking about it. But really emotional for him, and really, really, he was really, really delighted. And yeah, something that he carried for a long time. I'd imagine he was able to lift it off his shoulders. That it was a big monkey on his back, I'd say, for 14 years, and he got rid of it yesterday.
Do you remember that story? It was 1993, and there was a World Cup qualifier for France, and David Ginola gave away the ball in the last minute against Bulgaria. They went down, scored the goal. France didn't qualify for the World Cup. Gerard Houllier, I think afterwards, he had used the term that he murdered his team or whatever. And this is something that even, now Ginola is very, very sore talked about. I mean, why wouldn't he be? But like, it's kind of a similar story in a lot of ways.
Yeah, very, very similar. And I think he's actually a Tulla man originally, and maybe moved to Clonlara. But like, yourself, Shane, from being around public houses at different stages, and the longer you're in there, the looser people get, and the more likely they are to say something to you. And like, there's no point in saying it. I've had it different stages over, something you did in a game that maybe affected the result or whatever, and lads give it to you, and yeah, you'll take it sometimes, but it does chip away at you, and I'm sure that probably chipped away at him, and it was just an unfortunate incident back then. But I'd say it's probably it's going to be forgotten now anyway, and all the people will be focusing on is Clonlara winning yesterday, and deservedly winning. They were much the better team, you'd have to say, and even outside of like John Conlon, who was very good, and Ian Galvin, who was unbelievably dangerous, I don't think anyone has had as much of an effect on the scoreboard in a half as Ian Galvin had in the first half yesterday without actually scoring. Like, he was unbelievable.
Dillon did unreal to get back at him early in the game and hook him, didn't he? But other times he had to manhandle him to the ground. Like, when he's on the turn, he's a very hard man to stop.
Yeah, and that goal chance that Galvin had after 15 minutes, he got Dillon kind of showed him the inside, and he took the inside, and it was difficult. Maybe Keane Dillon should have maybe just kind of damaged imitation and just let him try and stand him outside and concede the point or whatever. But Galvin was really on form, and a lot of that was to do with the supply from his brother Colm, who there just seemed to be a bit of a telepathy between the two of them. And Colm Galvin has always been one of the great creators in hurling. Like, he just puts on lovely ball for an inside forward, and they obviously have a brilliant relationship as brothers or whatever. But he was laying on crazy ball for Ian Galvin. Ian Galvin was going to town on Keane Dillon. He had a tough opening 20 minutes. Thought he came into it a lot when he went out half back. He went out half back, and Ty Dean came in full back. But Galvin was still really, really dangerous inside. And we mentioned him once or twice, but Michael O'Loughlin he had a tough opening 15 minutes. He missed a couple of frees, and you're kind of thinking, I was sitting beside Dennis Walsh at the Times, and I just said, Jesus, I said, Michael O'Loughlin, this could be one of them days where things don't go right. And then all of a sudden, I think he ended up scoring the last 4 points of the second half, and he obviously rattled that goal in the first half as well, and he ends up with 2-9, 7 frees, like, after a really tough opening quarter. It's amazing the way it can turn. And on Clonlara, they'll be tough enough to beat for the Tipperary champions, I can tell you that. We'll focus on John Conlon and Colm Galvin, Ian Galvin, obviously, but they've like a really kind of youthful spine to the team. Thought Logan Ryan, a cornerback, was brilliant, a fist pumping cornerback. He was out in front a load of times.
You sure he's not from Tipp?
He could.
Brendan Bugler's the king of the fist pumps.
He doesn't like me saying that now, to be fair. But Ger Powell, very good fullback. Dylan McMahon, very good centre back. At Aidan Moriarty midfield, a lot of energy, a lot of youth. I think they won a minor. Was it 4 years ago? A minor A, and those boys are generally backbone on that side. I think they went back training. They won the Senior B last year. And just for people that don't know, you go into the Senior B after you're knocked out of the Senior A, so it's not as if they were Senior B or anything, but they've won the Senior B the last 3 years, and they're kind of celebrating after winning it last year. And I think John Conlon just kind of put the hand up and said, like, lads, what are we doing celebrating the Senior B here? We're better than that. think they went back to the gym 2 weeks after last year, after winning the Senior B. And Donald Madden obviously pulled the whole thing together, and they're happy men this morning.
Yeah, they most certainly are. To be fair to Crusheen, no harm in mentioning a couple of their scores. Oisin O'Donnell and Clonlara got their pound of flesh then when he went through for his goal. He scored 1-4, brilliant stuff there. Breffney Horner got 1-3, a couple of those frees. Ross Hayes, who we had mentioned earlier, he scored 3. Conor O'Donnell and Fergus Kennedy, they scored 2 apiece. Dermot Stritch is another good player as well. Like, I know it didn't happen for him throughout the game. Did he score at all? I'm not sure, but he definitely
he got one.
He definitely looks a lively player anyway. I suppose, like, if we talk about the Senior B final, Ballier, and I'm sure Ballier in other years they feel like they should be in a final here. You know, they won it a couple of years ago when Tony Kelly got injured and didn't feature after, was it the quarterfinal stage? Did he not play the semi-final and final? They still went on to win it. But as we found out there last Thursday when Tommy Guilfoyle was on the show, their B final against Aina Kilnamona was postponed due to the pitch availability. Mad that it was supposed to be on a Thursday at 8 p.m. I wonder, is there any chance that they'll go on a Saturday now or something?
Yeah, I'd say they probably will, because there's no rush on it now, and they're not going competing in Munster or anything like that. So I presume they probably wait till Cusack Park is available either Saturday or Sunday. So I'd imagine that I'd get a decent billing there. From Ballier and Aina Kilnamona's point of view, I'm sure there's a lot of regrets towards how the year has panned out. Just a word, Shane, on Colin Galvin as well. A guy who, you know, probably looked like nearly his entire career was over when he had to retire from Clare. Probably was about 20 months ago, I'd say, with chronic groin injury. We're just chatting him briefly after yesterday, and just an unbelievably happy man. He got through the whole year without any injury whatsoever. He said he really started focusing on recovery because I suppose he had to, and he was doing a lot of work in plunge pools and stuff like that. But he was like, maybe the same pace of, you know, 2013 is not there, but the brain is still there, and he's just like, he's one of the sweetest strikers of a ball you will ever see. And his goal just before half time, which the only word to describe it was bundled over the line, I'd say. I don't even know if he actually hit it with his hurl. It kind of nearly half looked like he threw it in over the line. But he was brilliant yesterday, and he just said after even that he got through the whole year without injuries and that he's mad for road. So they face obviously the Tipperary winners in mid-November. So being that, like, there's a massive incentive for whoever wins that game. You're through to a Munster final. Yeah, you could say you could be facing the Ballygunner machine on the other side, but you're going to do your damnedest to get to a Munster final. And I'm glad they've got plenty of time to enjoy it, because and I know we'll get into it in a while. Like, I was looking at Shelmaliers yesterday. I was looking at St. Joseph's on Saturday. St. Joseph's had 6 days to recover from their first county title win in 23 years, and they go to extra time, and they're beaten by a couple of points. 100%.
They've gone 4 ahead next time.
Yeah, 100%. It's, you know, the effects of the game the previous Sunday, number one, and then the celebrations. Same with Shelmaliers. Like, the winners of Shelmaliers and Lomans could easily go on to a Leinster final. Lomans won it by 2. Are you telling me that Shell's playing the week before didn't have a massive effect? Of course it did, and everything that comes with it. So, like, I don't know. You'd have to place a lot of blame at the county board's door in both counties, that they knew when the fixture was out. They knew when they had to have their representatives ready. 2 weeks minimum, realistically. You do whatever you have to. And in Laois, realistically, the hurling was played a week before the football. Surely that should have been the other way around.
Or surely both on the same weekend, one Saturday, one Sunday. Do the two finals really bother each other?
No, but even that, like, the hurlers, Camross have loads of time to get ready for the hurling, whereas Joseph's had 6 days to get ready for the football, and that doesn't make sense. And when you know the fixture's 3 or 4 months out, you just have to shift things around or whatever and make sure that you're giving your champions the best chance of getting through. Do you know what I mean? They hamstrung themselves there. Yeah,
so Adrian McGrath says Colm O'Mara should have, his wing forward, should have laid off to Galvin for 2 he saved. Was writing on the wall in terms of goals after the county semi-final when Scariff didn't finish against Crusheen. Adrian McGrath also adds, Crusheen were well beaten, but they showed real courage in the second half. It was like 2 different games between the halves. Now, I said that Tommy Guilfoyle was on to us, letting us know that the Ballier-Aina Kilnamona game wasn't going ahead last Thursday. He's been in contact. He must be watching the show. How are you, Tommy? Saying the Senior B final is fixed for tonight at 8 o'clock in Gertine. On a Monday night. How do you feel about that now if you're a Ballier or an Aina Kilnamona player?
I don't see the rush on it at all. surely you just played in Cusack Park on Saturday or Sunday. I don't see what the rush is there, to be honest with you. I don't know. I think it's a bit mad, to be honest with you. I know you think a little bit differently about playing games under lights. I think there's certain games you can play under lights, league games, etc. I don't think you play county finals under lights unless the game stretches into darkness and you turn on lights. It's just a different environment. Like, you get to 8 o'clock this evening or whatever it is in Gurteen, there's dew on the ground. You say more difficult to control a ball. No, I'm telling you.
It could be raining during the day, like.
Yeah, it could be, but it's not raining when I'm looking out here tonight. Anyway, it's different conditions, and I just don't think finals should be played at night at all. Why would you play it at night when there's no need? How has that been soft? I wouldn't have the greatest eyes in the world now. I never liked playing under lights. I don't think you get any grace for pulling 2 foot under the ball as well due to lights or anything like that. But I do not see the rush on that. I don't see the rush on it at all. And John Bolt says there that Senior B isn't taken seriously by anyone. That's fair enough. But still, I don't think there's any need to play it on Monday night really either.
Yeah, and I see that P-Well74, clearly a Limerick man, is trying to make the Clare final all about himself and Limerick. We've had lots of Clonlara players over the years. Fingallion's hurling team have had a final next Saturday, and the football team played a final on Monday with a lot of dual players playing 2 finals within 48 hours. There's more dew on the ground down here in the southwest.
There you go, yeah.
P-Well74 also adds in that Wexford hurling final finished nearly 2 months ago and still not played in Leinster, but the football champions have no break. Yeah, I mean, it just beggars belief. Do you know what I also find strange? We'll be talking about the Kerry Championship a little bit later on, but Fossa are into the intermediate football final. Last played, about 4 or 5 weeks ago, maybe? And now the senior East Kerry team, who obviously have the Cliffords and so on, they're now into a Kerry final. So that whole Fossa team has had to wait for absolutely ages before they can play their county final. I presume that final would have been played by now if the Cliffords weren't also lining out for East Kerry.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. I just don't understand it. I don't understand why. I've never seen it anywhere in any competition where we'll play it until the final, then we'll lay off for 6 to 8 weeks, maybe all told. We'll play the county championship and then we'll come back to the club championship. It's a bizarre one. It doesn't make sense to me. I saw Sean Kelly, the former GA president, talking about it and questioning the structures within Kerry or whatever. I just don't understand why they didn't play those championship games. And it's very unusual for, say, you want to strike while the iron is hot. Say Fossa have really come to the boil now. They've gotten over Stacks. They've all that momentum, probably unexpected. They weren't expected to beat Stacks. Then all of a sudden, as a manager, you're like pulling the reins in and you're basically waiting until East Kerry are out. And then you're like, what did they go off doing? Did they go off do a new pre-season again? Or did they play practice games without the Cliffords? Probably not, because there's that many lads from Fossa involved with East Kerry that they can't. It's just a really, really awkward one. And do you know what? We might try and get someone on maybe the manager even to talk through how exactly you negotiate that kind of gap, because it's a very, very unique one. It's bonkers. It's another mad GAA thing. You wouldn't see that in any other sport. Never would you put a competition on hold at the final stage to go and play another competition.
Would you say, like, of those teams that finished their county final a good while ago, Mount Leinster, Ballygunner, Naveana, for example, they're all playing challenge matches against each other to bait the band to get, to prepare for their Munster and Leinster championships?
Yeah, pretty much. They're all in the same boat. I know last year Ballygunner played, who'd they play last year? Or maybe it was the year before, they played Rapparees. I think they were trying to play, I was chatting to Darrell Sullivan last week, the Ballygunner manager. So I think they were trying to play Naveana, but I think they were actually playing intermediate football at the weekend. They won intermediate football. So they were playing Leinster Championship. So it's kind of a tricky one. I know
played Mount Leinster there a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, you're trying to keep kind of things ticking over. But it is a bit of a mad one. Ballygunner, as I said, I've dealt with it really, really well. But for a lot of other teams, it's a very difficult balancing act.
Yeah, must be frustrating prioritising for management. I'm sure that's back talking about the East Kerry situation and the Fossa boys. So will Thurles or Kilkenny be able to keep it pucked out to Clonlara? Clonlara gets to go and watch the county final replay, which in itself is an honour.
I don't think to be much in that now, have to say. Think to be very I don't think to be much in it. From if Clonlara take their chances and they're afforded those sort of chances now, whether they would be by Thurles or Kildangan is another story. That's a toss of a coin when it comes to it, I'd say, being honest with you. And yeah, as I said, a great chance for both to get through to the Munster final. Just a quick one, Shane, as well. Just some word coming through from Clare about that game being played tonight. Just someone on to me here saying the under-21 championship taking preference in Clare. Big push to play off the Senior B and leave the 21s off. No appetite for Senior B competition whatsoever, and very hard to keep lads training. So it's obviously a competition that means very, very little.
Yeah, and it seems to be Tommy's after following up saying it's raining heavily there, so it could be cancelled yet. So we'll have to wait and see. I'm sure nobody is waiting in anticipation to find out what happens with that Senior B nothing final. In Kilkenny, the Intermediate Championship saw Thomastown finally get promoted. So it's their fourth final in 5 years. And they beat Mooncoin, who obviously had an unbelievable run after coming out of the junior last year, getting all the way to Croke Park. But Noel Doherty's team, they eventually got over the line, 129 to 17 points. Stephen Donnelly scored 1-8, John Donnelly with 6, Robbie Donnelly 5, Luke Cannellan, who actually briefly had with the freshers last year, I might have mentioned that on Thursday's show, he scored 4. Very, very comprehensive victory there. Mooncoin's Pa Walsh scored 4, Adam Croke the same, and Paul Hennebury scored 3. So it does seem like, it was very much one-way traffic there based on the scoreline, 15-point defeat. And it's one of those things that it's not surprising to see teams that do well in the intermediate go on, kick on to the next gear when they go up to senior. Tullaroan went up and they were straight away at home. And I'd actually like to broaden this conversation out, along with mentioning this message from Richard Hogan. Vernie, back Thomastown for All-Ireland. If you can get bigger than evens, take it. Now, you would give them a fair old chance of going on a run, and this is without me knowing what the draw is off the top of my head. But if you look at other teams that come up from intermediate and do well, for example, the Clara, they got all the way to an All-Ireland final in intermediate, and then they became Kilkenny senior champions the next year. That's what, the guts of a decade, maybe even slightly more ago. You look at Rathmore and Kerry. They were All-Ireland intermediate champions earlier this year. They got straight up to the semi-final this year, and they lost to East Kerry at the weekend. Like, if you have your team together, win an intermediate title, go on a run for another 4 or 5 months, train collectively and all that time. This is something we've hinted at last week. Like, the amount of work you can do together to bring your team from here up to here. Like, Thomastown, if they go on a run, they could really make a rattle at senior level next year because they have a lot of quality.
Yeah, it's funny. We talked about this in regards to Turin in the Mayo final, because they would have had an extra, say, 3 months of training that Ballyhonest wouldn't have had. And I saw a comment in from Joe Butler, like it was a tight game up until about the 45th, maybe 50th minute, and then Turin pulled away. And like, is that any coincidence that they would pull away, given the extra training that they've had, given extra exposure that they've had? On Thomastown, like you saw, Bennett's Bridge won All-Ireland Junior 1 year, went and won All-Ireland Intermediate the next year. We're in a county final in Kilkenny maybe 2 years after that. Thomastown probably could have came up maybe 3-4 years ago, but they're ready to be a right good senior team in Kilkenny now. I'd be very surprised if they came up and went down. I'd be more in line in thinking that they will come up, get to a quarter final through the right door, and potentially get to a semi-final. John Donnelly was brilliant yesterday by all accounts. And for a team that's had a lot of pain in finals and semi-finals in the last couple of years, this was comprehensive. Very like when Tullaroan eventually did get up. They had a lot of pain along the way. And I know you were out. Remember, Nicky Brennan did a famous interview with Tommy Walsh, had something like 30,000 views on the OurGame page. I couldn't get a question
in edgeways. And I also thought, do you know what? I'd really let the air out of the balloon here if I got in the middle of 2 Kilkenny lads going at it.
Yeah, Tommy nearly had the arm around him as well. It was real kind of good interviews. Where sometimes you just don't need to ask a question. You just let whatever is going on go on. But I wouldn't be that surprised if I think Thomastown would be a good seasoned senior team in Kilkenny, and I'd be very surprised if they're down near any relegation quagmire. I would, on the flip of it, would expect to see them at the other end of the scale.
Yeah,
maybe Shano, maybe they'll be the team if Ballyhale, the wheels come off in Ballyhale over the next couple of years. Maybe they'll be one of the teams that'll take over. Who knows? Wouldn't surprise me that much.
Actually, I just checked up, and Thomastown have clocked ball of Wexford in 3 weeks' time. So they have a lovely little gap there. They can really celebrate finally getting promoted, because you'd imagine that they absolutely tore the back end out of it last night. By the way, while I think of it, and you're a good man for dismissing teams. You're saying Thomas is your Ballyhales. Teams like to pretend that you've completely dismissed them when you probably haven't. But Clonlara is a team that you've had a lovely few pops at over the years. Did anyone have any little sideways word for you down in...
No, actually, funnily enough, they didn't actually. I don't know if they had a leg to stand on over the last 15 years in a way, like, to be honest with you. But I was chatting to Michael O'Loughlin after the game, the man of the match, and he just said someone passed a comment either before or after the quarter final about Clonlara, and their aspirations to win a county title, that, it depends what side of the bed they get up on a given day. And he just said, like, they heard it, and obviously he said it drove them on a bit or whatever, but they probably would have had plenty of ammunition over the last maybe 15 years or that. Just look at a different outfit this year, I have to say, with a lot of that young blood coming through. And like, just think, as I went through some of the names before as well, they're obviously missing John Conlon and Ian Galvin during the county season, but there's a right good cohort of younger fellas. Even Michael O'Loughlin is 27. Like,
you know what O'Connell is? We know Derek Honan, obviously injury kind of brought the curtain down his career way too soon. But any idea on Tots O'Connell?
No, actually, no. I just know that he wasn't involved, but no idea whether he's injured or retired or really whatever. Good. Yeah, very, very good player. Left hand on top, wasn't he? Small, kind of diminutive player. But
that's a Clonlara special, really. They've either got absolute giants in Galvin, in Honan, or smaller lads like Tots O'Connell.
Yeah, and Ian Galvin and the likes as well. But no, I'd say, like, there's only a certain amount of times you can listen to people kind of writing you off. And like, the one consistent thing about Clonlara the last 15 years is probably their inconsistency. And they were really consistent all year. And I think that's probably what they'll take greatest pleasure in, that it was a consistent graph. It probably just climbed a little bit every day, and they saved one of their best performances of the year for the final.
Yeah, 36 and counting, Shane. Have any clubs that have massive breaks been looking for challenges with UCD? Well, they'd be looking for them from the fifth team, because the young lads that would be at the freshers are like 18 years of age, so it'd be more under 21 teams that we'd play against. I'm not actually sure is the answer, but I know there's league games come around very quickly for college teams, so I'm not really sure if there'd be room. Like, for example, I think we're playing a club teams under 21 side very soon. So maybe there is room also for it to happen at senior and fifth level. Richard Hogan says Thomastown are a very physical team and should do well at senior. Yeah, I reckon so too. So get your comments in. Let us know how you think they'll go. Also, Tullogher Ross Birkin, they beat St. Lactans 119 to 17 points. They're going up. Wally and the boys, they're heading up to intermediate next year. And you wouldn't put it against them doing an old run. Didn't they have a run in the Leinster football a few years ago?
Yeah, they might have had. I'm just wondering, did they have a run a good while ago as well when they went up from junior to intermediate? I'm not so sure. And if they did go on a run this year, you kind of wouldn't be sure whether Wally would be involved with Kilkenny next year. But if they did go on a run with the club until January, shall we say, you would have missed a lot of the harder stuff with the county, and you're coming in maybe off the back of a good club run. Maybe his year, maybe he would stay going with Kilkenny next year if that was the case. But be interesting to see. Yeah, they had a good performance the other day as well. Yeah. And yeah, I wonder will we see him with Kilkenny in 2024? I wonder, there's a couple of other faces, elder faces. I wonder whether we'll see them with Kilkenny next year as well.
Yeah, they wear the old black and amber. I'm just looking up an article here written in 2015, and it mentions that they were actually primarily set up as a football club back in the day. And let me just see a little bit more detail.
A lot of those lads, Shano, would go to good counsel, and Wally would have kicked football in good counsel as well. And even a lot of the Mullen of At lads would go to good counsel too. So while people would say maybe there's not a lot of football pedigree in Kilkenny, those guys would have all played Leinster College's A football with good counsel,
Yeah, and they won 7 senior titles between 1930 and 1944. Ross Birkin is on the River Barrow. So what's the three rivers? Is it the Three Sisters in Kilkenny?
The Nor, the Shore, and the Barrow.
Yeah, I would have said the Shore, Nor, and Barrow rather than the other way around now.
Yeah, because the first one flows through Tipp.
Yeah, obviously. Right, so the Leitrim hurling final was on over the weekend. Carrick beat Clooneen Imot, I should say, 113 to 111. They were outplayed by Carrick for an awful lot of the game here, but they staged a late rally. The down final, Portaferry 20 points, Ballycran 16. So that's they reclaimed the title actually, and it was a 6th final in a row between these fairly heavy rivals. The Cork Senior Hurling Championship A final. I mean, both between Newcestown and Blarney, they are really getting used to being out every single weekend. Like, it finished the draw, so this was to go up to the very top level, which is Premier Senior, Super Senior, or whatever they're calling it in Cork these days. 116 Blarney, 19 point Newcestown. People would obviously know Luke Mead of Newcestown, and Blarney would have Shane Barrett and Mark Coleman. If you haven't seen any of the shows recently, we've been talking about them. They're going to meet next Saturday again. And Blarney thought they had scored a goal at the very, very end of the game. I think it was Mark Coleman was putting in a sideline, but the referee blew the full-time whistle as the ball was going in. So it's going to be replay next weekend. Newcestown have been on the go every single weekend, bar one, since July 29th. And they've got to play Dohenys in the Senior A Football Championship final on November the 5th. So it's just relentless. I'd say no matter what, they would have loved a couple of days to chill.
Definitely. That's tough going now. They've got the final next Saturday. Celebrations or commiserations after, and then they're getting ready for the football. It could be an unbelievably special couple of weeks, or it could be a disastrous couple of weeks. And same with Blarney. Like as I said on Thursday's show, Blarney's season was over. Then all of a sudden they get a reprieve 4 or 5 days after that game, and I'd say they thought that there was nearly the fairy tale story, nearly like kind of nearly compared to Offaly in '98, where your season is over. All of a sudden you get a reprieve, and you think it's just nailed on for you or something like that. There's just a belief there. And I was listening to Michael Dignan talk about this yesterday. They just felt like everything had fallen in place in '98. Maybe Blarney feel the same, but they get another chance to get it done next weekend.
Okay, the Tipp Premier Intermediate Final. I was watching this one. Lorrha 213, Thurles 18 points. And I mean, Lorrha had this game absolutely wrapped up. This is, second team with Thurles, but they've got serious talent there. I was watching the stream, and Paddy Maher walking the line. Obviously, he had last weekend with,
he's over the second team as well.
Well, I'm presuming he is, because he seems very, very prominent on the sideline. And like, this final was drawn last weekend. So he had a match last Saturday, Sunday. He's back out this week. He's back out next week. So I don't know how he has time for the old coffee establishment with Seamus Callan, but I tell you what, he's been very impressive in his first year as a senior manager.
How would you be in that situation? I know if I was on the line on a Saturday and a Sunday, my voice would be gone for the Sunday. My energy would be gone for the Sunday. Like, it takes fair effort to be able to do that over and over again. I'd be goosed. I'd hurl the match, unfortunately. That's the way I do it. If I'm on the sideline, I can't do it any other way. So I don't know how he does it, and it's a fair commitment. You're basically you're looking after the guts of about 50 different players.
Yeah.
It's a fair effort now.
Yeah, but then again, if you're training a big group, like you're in an awful lot of clubs, you're going to train the first team and the second team together. So you're going to see all these players, and they're going to play matches, and you're going to be going to the match anyway, so you might as well manage it.
Yes and no. I think it is, Shane. Like, if you look at it, like every time there's a championship weekend, like he's gone, we'll say Friday and Sunday with the two teams. And every second week, and then he's training them, whatever about training, it's all the same bodies. There's no extra, but there's extra games for Premier Intermediates every weekend of a championship. They're playing challenge games. It's not just a challenge game for the seniors, it's a challenge game for the Premier Intermediates as well. Like, and he was with Tipp as well. Like, this is a 7-day-a-week gig. Like, I think it is a lot of added work on top. As I said, more to do with the amount of energy that you'd expend. I know that I'd find it very, very difficult to do. I'd need about 3 or 4 days off after then to build myself back up again.
Do you find that, like, and I presume you're talking about when you're involved with school teams and stuff like that, are you talking about like from being a mentor / manager of teams?
Yeah.
So do you find that you're able to keep your composure and see things clearly through a match, or do you find yourself getting, kind of caught up in it?
See, I think we all have different strengths and weaknesses, and I'd say if I had a strength on the line, it would be motivatory and all action and that kind of crack. Yeah, and making a bit of noise and whatever.
Cheerleader. Give you pom-poms.
Give me a B. Give me an I. So that I would kind of see that's what I'd be good at. So that's kind of what I do. So I'd need someone in the setup that's going to stand back and be completely out of it and just watch everything and relay messages to me. Basically, I need two of me. I need one on the line, I need one in the stand.
I don't think this show would be able to survive having two you.
No, definitely not. I'm only messing, but that's what I would see as one of my strengths. If I had to play that other role and watch from the stand, I think I'd be grand at that as well. But I just think I'd be more use on the line. Whereas I'd say you'd probably prefer to be up in the stand nearly, seeing everything, would you?
Yeah, I would, but I'm a stiff. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. We all have our moments doing a bit of jawing because we're not happy with the decisions. And, the odd time you'll have a bit of a kerfuffle with someone on, the other sideline or whatever. But I think generally I stay fairly dispassionate in a way that I'm happy about, because I feel like you're seeing it clearly. But yeah, I agree with you. There are different strengths in different directions. There's a question here. Do the juniors in Kula and Burr train with seniors? Yes. I mean, I think, I'm not sure about Burr, but a lot of the city clubs, for example, I'm pretty sure Crokes have 5 or 6 different teams at adult level. Kula have currently 4. I think it's 4 anyway. But yeah, like the top 2 teams would train together. For example, you couldn't really have more than that.
Yeah, no, we'd be the same. Senior A's and Senior B's train together, and then the Junior B's, which won the championship, would train on a different night then as well. But yeah, you couldn't have 3 teams. It's also a bit tricky if your top team is, would say, Senior A, and your second team is, would say, a junior team.
Yeah, down
because
several divisions.
Yeah, just because I don't know, breakdown of drills and stuff like that, and it can get maybe a bit frustrating. So if it's Senior A and Senior B, or Senior A and Intermediate, it's a bit easier to manage. Whereas if it's Senior A and then it's a team that's maybe 3 grades down, it can be kind of difficult and can maybe impinge on your training sessions a small bit. And I've seen that in various places.
You might read that comment from Adrian McGrath.
Bernie calling his ranting nuttery running up and down the line motivation has to be one of the more deluded moments of the show. No, I actually completely disagree with you, Adrian. There'll be a lot of sense in, you're not just going around shouting at nothing or whatever. I think you do. It's funny because I think, and you know this from being on the line, you do see a lot of things on the line that you don't see in the stand. But conversely to that, you see a broader picture in the stand. I love being down on the sideline because you can hear what players are saying to each other. You can see somebody giving someone the hand of the hurl. You can see the jewels really, really closely and maybe what's working and what's not. As a broader picture would say, puck out scenario, shape on a puck out. The stand is the only place to see that. Yeah. But you see different things from different vantage points. That's why, it was interesting. Aidan Hart was on the line for Crusheen yesterday, and he was basically looking at everything on ground level. And then Michael Brown, Paddy Vaughan, and all the rest of the boys, Crone and Dillon, were watching from the stand, and they were relaying messages to him every couple of minutes. But you do need people at different vantage points. And no, I disagree with you there, Adrian. No, it wouldn't be. It's not just ranting or anything like that. You're seeing things, and you might see, if usually when you're able to go around the pitch a bit more, the certain players need, a little boot up the whatever. Do you know what I mean? And they need to be. Some players love to have someone under case the whole time. Other players hate that. So you work to whoever is there. You work to you give whatever different players, you give them whatever they need during a game where possible.
Adrian adds in, get someone to film it so, Mike, we can all judge what's going on. Richard Hogan says, Vernie on the line, mic'd up to Shane in the stand. Wouldn't that be lovely? And then Cuckoo adds in, lads, the 2 of you must take a team and make an all-access series on it for exclusive Patreon members.
Gladly. I'd say it might be more than exclusive Patreon. That could be a Netflix doc, I'd say.
And I'll tell you, it wouldn't lack for action. It wouldn't lack for facepalm moments as well, I'd imagine.
Conor Heaney's gone in 2-footed on Adrian McGrath here. Maybe if the Scariff boys had a Vernie type on the line, they'd have bait Crusheen. And I love the way he said bait as well.
Yeah, he's gone for him there in a big way. Okay, so just back to this Lorrha against Thurles game. And like Lorrha obviously drawing the game last weekend from 6 or 7 ahead. They went 8 points ahead in the first half here, and it looked like they had the game. Like, it looked to me like they were running away with the game, but they really did let Thurles back into it. And a lot of it, of course, is, huge credit to Thurles. Like, to Jack Lanigan was playing full forward. I thought he got some very nice scores. Michael O'Brien came in. He certainly made an impact, very classy hurler. On the other side, Bonner Maher was doing a nice bit of damage up in the full forward line. Now, Brian Hogan, who was brought back from Australia, we saw this with the likes of Chris Crummy brought back from Australia. He was back, and I think he had only just been coming on in the recent couple of games, but he started it looked around, I was watching on the stream, it looked like the half-back line or midfield, and he was under a small bit of pressure, a couple of pacey lads getting away from him, because that Thurles team has a lot of really pacey players. And he was then moved into the full forward line in the second half, which was probably where Bonner was doing most of his damage, and Bonner seemed to be coming out a little bit. So I don't know if that worked brilliantly for Lorrha because they were under a little bit of pressure, but they had 3 or 4 goal chances at the start of the second half. Didn't really take them. Let Thurles, Sarsfield's second team, back into the game. But ultimately, they got over the line. Huge excitement towards the end of the game. And I'd say, if you look at Lorrha there, the last couple of years, back-to-back promotions. So They had previously lost a Seamus O'Reen final, this is a couple of years ago, to Mullinahone. So the senior Seamus O'Reen would be the second tier in Tipperary. Then they got relegated. Then they won, I think, against Moneygall in the intermediate final last year. They go ahead, they win a final this year against Thurles after a replay. It's a team that's kind of, to me, they're starting to go up through the gears now, and they look like they could do quite well at senior next year. But they will have to improve because some of the sloppy play is going to be punished at senior level. But we've seen at Ross Gray, McCarthy, Burris, teams can come straight up. They have the hurlers, but they obviously have other things that they're going to be looking to work on as well.
Yeah, we play Lorrha up and down regularly with Burr, and we actually played them this time last year. Like, it's mad. They played Seamus O'Reen final in 2020 under John Mack. Then Bonner got injured. They were relegated the year after. Then Ken Hogan came in after winning 3 in a row with Rhinus, 19, 20, 21, and he wins I don't know what you call it, the intermediate, and then they win Premier Intermediate. So they're going up to senior in a really good spot, I would say. I just see Ken's son Keane actually just put up a picture there on Twitter this morning. Premier Intermediate champions in the world. Would have played Tipp under 21 back in the day, and he's a big lad. He's a handful, and he's very, very clever as well.
I think he scored 1-3. Very good.
Yeah, good player. I think Richard Hogan asked how many McIntyres are playing. Definitely Niall and Owen anyway. And Owen is a really dangerous player, really, really fast. Niall is obviously sports journalist as well. He works with Joe and presents their GA Hour, I think. Good fella and a good hurler too. Lots of energy around the middle of the park. I think they'll be ready to be a decent senior side. The only issue is, I suppose, that Bonner is probably coming towards the tail end of his career now. He got a brilliant goal the other day as well. You'd love if they were going up senior and he was, 30, 31 and had a good 4 or 5 years ahead of him. Now, that's not to say he doesn't. At club level, he probably does. But they were, from what I saw, they were the better of the two teams over the bulk of the 120 odd minutes that they played or whatever. And no doubt they're enjoying themselves today.
Yeah, Shane Brophy, who people will see me doing tipcast with all the time. He's a selector with the Lorrha team, so I'm sure he enjoyed a couple of pints there over the weekend. Lorrha and Corofin will be a great game. Corofin are a really balanced side with a lot of dangerous forwards. Shane, are there any young and coming teams in Tipp you think could challenge for an All-Ireland in a few years? If we're talking about senior level, do you know what? Up until the draw and final, I should say, I wasn't really thinking that Kildangan would be a team that would do anything beyond Tipperary. Like, as in, I'm talking about against the likes of Ballygunner, the top teams out there, the Piershig and so on, Kilmallock, whoever you want to talk about. But to me, they look like two physically powerful teams, athletic, weren't carrying, the way I use that term, carrying a few bogeys. I don't think either team is carrying bogeys in that Tipperary final. And that's why I think both of them could perform quite well no matter who they come up against. I'm not saying they'd beat Ballyhale, Ballygunner, Na Piarsaigh, whatever, but I think they'll give any of them a right good game. And I think that now more so than previously. And I think Thurles are probably the most likely in the next couple of years to win an All-Ireland if any Tipp team was to.
You've given yourself a bit of an out there because you were all in on Thurles, and now you've kind of pulled the reins in a small bit and you've extended the conversation to Kildangan.
But do you remember earlier in the season, I was more or less saying, look, I don't think Ballyhale are going to win this title. They softened my cough against Dixborough, and then I was all in on them. Sometimes you have to say, fair enough, I called it, didn't go my way. Now I'm going to, buy a ticket for a difference.
No, I completely agree with you. You form a certain opinion. If that opinion is wrong and they prove your opinion to be wrong, you don't just stay going against that team because I'm going all in now, I'm going to stay doing this.
I think Kildangan or Thurles will get to the final. Whoever comes out against Clonlara.
The Clare boys probably will disagree. I don't think there'll be much in it. I don't think there'll be much in it now, being honest with you. But there's definitely the softer side of the draw. Imagine they were coming up in a quarter final against Ballygunner. They'd be on the road to a bit of a pacing, I would imagine. But yeah, I of other sides coming up, I saw this year Holy Cross Ballycattle. I liked what I saw from, even though they didn't make the knockout stages, Mike Harkey Boris, I liked. Same at Ross Gray. Tommy Vara are coming. There's a good few teams coming. Whether they contest for All Ireland or not, I'd highly doubt it over the next couple of years. But contesting for tip honours might be enough for the minute.
Do you know, if Nina could actually go ahead and get the monkey off their back and win one, like, think of the talent they have. Like Barry Heffernan, Sam O'Farrell, Jake Morris. I know Mikey Heffernan, like, he just doesn't miss. Like there's got to be a lot of players there that if they get through one, even Paddy Murphy there in the half back line, he's kind of doing in terms of going from forwards to backs what Joe Gallagher has done this year with Kilkenny. And I think there's a lot of good stuff there.
Come on now. Ifs and buts, candy and nuts here. They're going back to the mid-90s to try and win a county title. And you're saying if they win one.
They have the talent to do it. They're not making good at it, but they do have a lot of talent there. And maybe it'll just require getting over the line once. Is that not something that happens?
Yeah, they're as far away from now from getting over the line as they've ever been, though. Do you know what I mean? Like, so, yeah, I can't agree with that.
Okay, Hugh Kennedy says, what are your thoughts on Mark Coleman playing in the forwards for Cork next year? Unless he was playing as a Roman centre forward, or maybe a deep line wing forward who just tries to nip play and gets on the ball. But I'd rather him facing the ball, so I would be more inclined to say as a wing back. What would you think?
Yeah, unless he's drifting out, possibly like playing some sort of like a third midfielder role or a link man there that gets on a lot of ball. We always say it at the end of the day, in the big championship games, when the cut and thrust of it, you have to put a ball down top of your half forward line. He's not a forward first and foremost, and he's not like unbelievably big. So I wouldn't like that's going to be really, really difficult. If they create a role for him where he needs to play, as you say there, he could be really effective. But I wouldn't see it. I'd say he'd be wing back or midfield.
The comments are flowing in here. River Power says Nina winning nothing underage. Then he adds in Nina, the gentleman. That's some rowback, Shane. So remember earlier in the year, I said when Nina lost to Thurles in Bursley in the preliminary quarterfinal, my mother had summed it up lovely by saying that Nina played like gentlemen. But there doesn't mean that a team can't develop a hard edge or just kind of reach a point where they say enough is enough, a la Clonlara, the team that you like to slide so often over the years, that they mightn't just find the little edge to make them go, okay, let's do this differently.
Yeah, it's a big departure. It's a big departure to say that they can compete for Munster and All-Ireland titles when they haven't won a Tipp title since the great Padjo managed them in, 95, was it?
Oh, you had to make it about Burr, didn't you?
Just on that as well, what was I going to say to you there, actually? In the Kildare Championship, we talked about this, the Kildare Football Championship, talking about managers that have won different things in different counties. Ken Hogan, I'll just get to the Kildare in a second. Ken Hogan has won county titles with Burr, Coolderry, including Boris Kilcotton, Rhinus, Lorrha. Like, and that's taken in, he's obviously been involved with Tipp senior teams, Tipp under 21 teams in the middle of that. That's some CVs assembled. Micheál McDermott, who was with Selbridge, they were beaten by 2 points by Kildare. He won one with, I think, Mona Lean, was it Kilmurray at Bricken, Wolf Tones in Mead, and somebody else. But it's amazing. Like, lads, there's certain, Michael Brown, that was with Crusheen yesterday, won one with Tulla in 2007, won 2 with Crusheen, 10-11. They'd never won one before. Got Crusheen back to a final yesterday. It's amazing. There are certain faces that you just see. They go to different places, but the result is usually fairly similar.
Okay, then what about Tom Mullally? Got to an All-Ireland club final, won Carlow and Leinster, of course, after winning the intermediate set with Mount Leinster the year before. So that's unbelievable. He also has been winning with Naas, county title. Obviously, he'll hope to go a little bit further in the Leinster Championship this year. He's been involved with Glenmore. I'm not sure if they won anything or not under him. He's done some nice work with Carlow also. If people were to fill in a few of the blanks there or name some other coaches, like I remember a couple of years ago when Bursley were looking for their next manager, and one of them said to me, is there anyone out there that you'd look at? And I said, you should get on to Tom Mullally, see if he's still involved. Because you know the way in between seasons, you don't know if that person is going to be staying with their club next year or not. It's worth at least a phone call just to see. But
just on that as well with Boris, like Johnny Kelly won the county title with Boris, and he won the Munster. He won an Offaly title with Coolderry. He won an All-Ireland with Portumna. Is there one more? There's one more. Might have been involved. No,
he was involved with Kilkenny.
Was he involved with Clymer Daly when they won an All-Ireland intermediate? He's involved with someone, and there might have been another county thrown into the mix as well. But like there's certain guys just seem to bring success, bring silverware, that kind of Midas touch no matter where they go.
River Power says, you could say Clonmel don't make the use of their numbers like Nina when it comes to hurling, but Jesus, they're not like them. They've some football team. We'll talk about them a little bit later, but if Clonmel don't go on and make a real push for the Munster Championship this year, and I think the timing is crucial now while they still have players at a lovely age there, I think this is really the time. If a Tipperary team is ever going to win a club football All-Ireland, and look, with the likes of Glen, Kilcoo, Clincould Crokes, whatever, it's highly, it's a huge, tall order. But like this team now, that's about as good as a chances you're ever going to have.
I'd say they still look back with a lot of regret to that game. And it was on a Saturday evening in February against Ballyboden. It ended up level after normal time. They had the winning of that in normal time, and then Ballyboden
and
pulled away.
had Ballyboden beaten the previous game, and didn't they miss a free from the 21 to level it late on?
Yeah, poor old Paul Cahalane off the left. I can remember that. And then Ballyboden delivered an unbelievable performance against Castlebar Mitches in the All-Ireland final. Clonmel were brilliant against Nemo last year in the park. And then they were brutal against Newcastle West in the semi-final. So, you'd imagine, I think Michael Quinnivan's out around the middle of the park as well. Obviously, maybe mixing between there and kind of full forward. But they definitely have the personnel to be really, really dangerous at provincial and potentially All-Ireland level.
Yeah. Tom's brother, Paul Mullally, was coaching Ferrybank, says Richard Hogan. ML89, Burris, the only Tipp club who's shown a bit of tactical know-how and had some big men who could hurl it and played to a plan as well. It's had some great players too, and signs were on. Only Tipp club to succeed. And I suppose, it's a long time since another Tipperary team has made a big, big impact. Of course, Thurles getting to the semi-final before. What's the possible motivation to move all over the country? What could it be? Asking about managers.
I wouldn't be necessarily be as cynical as that. I remember chatting Johnny Kelly, and there obviously are other perks, but it's unbelievable to go into another parish and say he went to Coolderry and they won a county title in 2015. And what you see in the people that you get to know and what you see in that locality in the build up to a county final, and then after winning the county final, that stays with you forever. You've basically cemented your place in the history of that place forever. And then you win a county title, then you want to maybe go somewhere else. And he did the same, obviously, in Borrisoleigh. He'll forever be welcomed in Borrisoleigh. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't be, as cynical to say it's all about as Homer Simpson had said, the all-ighty aller. I don't think it's as simple as that. Maybe it is for some journeyman coaches and managers, but for the lads that are winning, I don't think it's that simple to say that.
Okay, I'm after getting a bit of extra information here. Adrian McGrath, Mullally was the Clonlara manager, I think. Look at the record before and after his reign. A brilliant manager.
Clara,
sorry. So he's taken Mount Leinster to All-Ireland Intermediate and then won Leinster Senior. He's taken Clonlara to All-Ireland Intermediate and then won a county title with them. Glenmore, he took them to a junior All-Ireland hurling title. Naas to Kildare hurling title. Have I forgotten anything there? That is an unbelievable collection of titles.
Yeah, and I know from chatting to a couple of people around Carlow that winning a national title at inter-county level was something out of the box that he really wanted to tick, and he ticked it this year with winning the Joe McDonagh, obviously, with Carlow. No, it's an unbelievable CV that's assembled. It's funny because, it's not funny, but he will probably not get a big job in Kilkenny. As in, would he be considered for the Kilkenny senior job? Probably not, but he should be.
Someone who comes through the whole system of underage and whatever, but in Kilkenny.
Yeah, I remember chatting to the late great Liam Curran. Remember we were chatting him on this show about would he ever be Kerry manager? Was something that he'd want, and he kind of just said that once he went out of the system, as in not involved with the minors, not involved with the 20s, not a selector or coach of the seniors, you're kind of out of the question. Same with John Evans. That's why I wonder with someone like Kieran Donaghy. He's went and got inter-county experience elsewhere, really good experience. But because he's gone out of the system and he's never been in the system, will he be considered for a Kerry job, or would he have to go and be coach of Kerry for 3 years or take the 20s or something like that? Whereas if you look at with Tomás O'Shea, he went with Offaly for a year under John Mott, and now he's with the 20s. He's in the system to be the next Kerry manager, if you get me. Kilkenny don't tend to look outside of that system. Same with Kerry. Probably same with Dublin, I'd say. If you look at Jim Gavin, Desi Farrell, the real strongholds tend to stay within that system, and it's almost systematic, as in they have a fair idea who the next senior manager is going to be, and it's planned.
Yeah. And Jack O'Connor, of course, he did go along to Kildare, but he'd been through the system before, so it wasn't too.
And with the 20s as well, only a couple of years before that, so it wasn't a big departure.
Yeah, is there any danger of Thurles going on to dominate in Tipp? Well, they haven't won it since 2017. But you could see a case for it. Hugh Paddy says, Tom Mullally is the Messiah. No surprise to hear from a man who would know him quite well, I'd imagine. You lads heading to the Limerick final on Saturday evening. I'm not entirely sure. Clare SHC, not Clonlara. Yeah, come on. We're talking about so many clubs here, Adrian. Don't punish me for getting the odd thing wrong.
Yeah, the Limerick final on Saturday is going to be a tasty one. Even the Pearshik side who fell over the line against Doon, and a Wells side who's coming in really cock a hoop after beating Kilmallock in the semi-final. Don't know if I'll be down there, but looking forward to seeing it either way.
Yeah, okay. We'll move on to the next county championship that we haven't spoken about. So Turin, they're Mayo champions once again. They beat Ballyhonus 18 points to 13. They shot 7 of the last 8 points. It's their 33rd county title, and Ballyhonus had put up a right good contest before that, but unfortunately it wasn't to be for them. The Senior B final saw Castlebar Mitchells 115, St. Kieran's 20 points. So that's St. Kieran's on top there. Former Kerry footballer Peter Keane, he's not taken over the vacant post in Tipperary. So this had been the news that was flying around in the past week. And Conor Sweeney was on commentary of the Clonmel game against JK Brackens over the weekend. And he more or less said as much. He was just like, it's not going to happen. And I was looking at Martin Murphy, who's a journalist down in Kerry, and he was saying, sources close to the action tell me that former Kerry senior manager Peter Keane will not be taking up the offer and leave Tipp in a bad place and hard to fathom. So the Tipp County Championship is over now and there's no management in place. And you could see some of the comments in line that maybe he couldn't get a management team together. And that's what Mart says, yeah, that's what I heard. SNC was possibly a stumbling block. So obviously that's not fully set in stone there as a reason. But if that was the reason that Tipperary couldn't get in a manager who's seen and done it to the level that Peter Keane has, you'd be very disappointed.
You would, Jesus, you would definitely. And it's kind of a mad one because I was kind of covering the draw and just doing a few bits on it for the Independent website and on Saturday, and you see two teams drawn against each other in the Munster quarter final, Waterford and Tipperary, neither with a manager and neither with a manager on the horizon by the looks of it. The only thing I'd say about it as well is surely someone's ears will perk up a small bit. Like, you do have a chance to get into a Munster final. I know they're operating from Division 4. You potentially have a chance to get into a Munster final, and maybe you wouldn't want to be, but in the All-Ireland Championship and been in the Super Fours or whatever they're called or whatever name is on them. At least they're not drawn against Kerry in the opening round or anything like that. But it looks like they're a bit away. There was a few Cork names, I think, in the hat before Peter Keane. Peter Keane's name was thrown out there, but you kind of did throw up the logistical problems travel-wise on Thursday's show. Like, Jesus, you'd want to be fairly enthused to be travelling that far. And lads will always be cynical and say that it's, to do with how you're being remunerated or whatever. But like, you'd want to be looked after fairly well to be making that trip. And it's not, like, let's call it a spade a spade. The Tipp football job is not exactly the sexiest job out there at the minute. And you have a lot of your best players unavailable to you, and a lot of your and they want to play inter-county football at the minute. So that's kind of I don't know. You have to, because they'll have to go back and maybe start the whole thing again, because it did seem like things were pretty advanced with Keane, but obviously the wheels have come off that in recent days.
Yeah, that's hugely disappointing. Like, both teams, whether it's Waterford or Tipperary, they need a bit of a name just to generate a bit of fanfare around it. And look, we know that the names aren't always the ones that are really good managers, but if they can get a good backroom team around them, sometimes you just need a bit of a banner to build things around. And actually in Sligo, I mean, of course, Tony McEntee is a good name to be building their team around, and they've been doing really well in the last couple of years. They've added Kevin McLaughlin, who, of course, played for Mayo for so many years. He was involved since 2009, and he's going straight into intercounty management. No matter what he's bringing, he'll certainly bring a lot of experience. Obviously, we don't know what he's like as a coach or whatever, but he'll surely bring something to that setup.
He will, of course. And when Jim McGuinness came back to Donegal, he obviously, poached his brother-in-law, Colin McFadden, from Sligo. So there was a gap there to be filled. I don't know what Kevin McLaughlin's coaching acumen is or whatever, but he was one of the cutest and smartest kind of forwards that has played in the last 10 or 15 years. And will probably go down on that list of best players never to win an All-Star, I'd say, as well. Very, very high. Very, very high. No, never won an All-Star. No, he'd be very, very high up on that list. And it's funny, you kind of think, like, when lads step off the treadmill for after about 15 years on it, that they take a bit of a break. But a lot of the time it's just not in certain lads. They want to be back aboard that. It's just something they're programmed to do for so long. And you just program yourself in a different way then, and you just get involved in the coaching side of things.
I wonder what people thought of the provincial football championship draws that were made over the weekend. And you just, again, look, I saw like different people talking about it in different ways, but like, if you look at the setup in the Munster Championship, it's going to be Limerick or Cork against Kerry in one semi-final eventually, and it's Clare versus Tipp or Waterford. So Clare, Tipp or Waterford are going to be getting into a Munster final. Then you look at the likes of Ulster, of course, and if like the preliminary quarter-final is Monaghan against Cavan, the winners of that play Tyrone. Then the winners of that is probably playing the likes of the winner of Derry against Donegal. Now, great to see Derry against Donegal because you've got Jim McGuinness up against Mickey Hart, but there's such a disparity. Like this needs to be sorted out and just completely decouple the provincial championships from the All-Ireland series, as far as I'm concerned.
It's completely imbalanced. Like,
but look at the Rugby World Cup. It was absolutely destroyed by having Argentina in that semi-final. Like, what a waste of time it was. New Zealand played with 14 men for the last 15 minutes or something because it was so one-sided.
They basically were that much better than Argentina that they had an injury and they just didn't bring anybody on. Like, isn't that nuts? I think it was Carter O'Kane put up the route for, a potentially Waterford, Tipp or Clare to get to the All-Ireland stages compared to the route for a Monaghan or Cavan, shall we say, or a Derry or a Donegal. And it's bonkers. Like, it's bonkers. I have to say that Ulster draw is tasty, though. You have Monaghan, Vinnie Corey got to semi-final last year. You don't know whether McManus will be back, going up against Ray Gallagher's Cavan. Obviously, former goalkeeper turned manager straight away, unheard of. They meet in the preliminary round. The winner plays Tyrone, and the winner of that plays the winner of Mickey Hart's Derry against Jim McGuinness's Donegal. And there's be a fair bit of water under the bridge, but there is the potential for the semi-final to be Mickey Hart against Tyrone, which would be just gas. Like, they're going to meet in the league anyway. But that would be a mad one. And then you also have the added thing of Mickey Hart I don't know if he ever got a big championship win over McGuinness while McGuinness was with Donegal. Not to my best recollection anyway. And they're meeting some decade on from when they last met. That's the really interesting one. Outside of that, you're kind of more looking at potentially Division 4 and Division 3 counties getting to provincial finals. And with due respect, taking an All-Ireland place from a team that is higher ranked than them and probably more deserving. And that's just calling a spade a spade.
Yeah. Imagine if Ulster football supporters went on about it as much as Munster hurling supporters do. Although Ulster do have more than one team in it who can win it. Yeah, fair point there, ML89. Anyway, that's the sort of thing that'll rumble on. So the LGFA issues we saw over the weekend as well, just the fixture clashes between like ladies, senior and minor teams in different provinces and so on and so forth. We saw what happened in Laois and Port Laois. They asked the county board to address the clash that saw their seniors play Leinster Club Championship against Longford Slashers at 2 p.m. in Rat League, 3 hours before the minor team were down to play in the Centre of Excellence. It's just like, this just seems to go on and on and on. And why is there not joined up thinking?
Yeah, and unfortunately, Shane, you know this from putting your journalistic hat on. A lot of the biggest stories to do with LGFA and Camogie are these messes. Like, that's when they gain the most traction. Am I wrong? That's nope. Like, it's some big, huge faux pas where it just shows the disparity between the men's and the ladies' games and the lack of organization or lack of joined up thinking. Like, come on, like, fixing the game 3 hours beforehand on the same day, like, Jesus Christ, like, this is like, we're in 2023 now. You think we'd be beyond that at this stage? And that, unfortunately, that's just the way it is. It happens so regularly. It happened with was it Rathot in the ladies football and Camogie? I think there was 2 fixtures, fixed championship fixtures, one a knockout game fixed within 24 hours of each other. All this really ridiculous stuff where there's not doesn't seem to be master fixtures plans put in place and allowances for replays, allowances for games finishing on the day, and they just end up in this massive mess. You know, that, like, what was stopping the minor game being played at 12 o'clock on the Sunday? This is not ideal, but this is just better than what it was. Play the minor game at 12 o'clock on the Saturday, play the senior game at 3 o'clock on the Sunday, and at least give them 24 hours. And that's not good enough, but it's a lot better than what they were proposing.
Yeah. Okay. The Leinster Football Championship started over the weekend. Tullamore 1-7, Summerhill 1-9. Now, there was certainly very regrettable scenes after the game. Barry Tiernan, he was pushed to the ground and escorted off the pitch, of course. And you know, of course, like, no doubt you would condemn in the strongest terms the pushing of referees and so on and so forth. But, and you've been looking into this morning as well, there are circumstances around it that make it difficult to talk too deeply about this, because there's issues going on in the background, and we kind of have to remain a little bit vague on it at the moment because of personal information.
Yeah, there's definitely some mitigating circumstances in the background, but that doesn't mean that you wouldn't totally condemn what happened. Now, just to set the scene, the last 4 to 5 minutes of that game were as mad kind of scene as I've ever seen. So Summerhill are judged to have touched the ball on the ground just outside the 6-yard box, which is a technical foul. It's not like me dragging you down foul. It's a technical foul. So if that was inside the 6-yard box, that's a penalty. But because it was outside the 6-yard box, that's a free in. So it's given as a free in. And some of the Tullamore lads are remonstrating and saying, no, it should be a penalty or whatever. The referee, Barry Tiernan, goes in, talks to the umpire. All of a sudden, it's gone from a free in on the right-hand side to a penalty. And Paul McConway, who I know fairly well, playing full back, real good ball player, he's the ball in his hands, he's going up to take the penalty, and Barry Dardis hits him a shoulder, knocks him to the ground. Barry Dardis is given a yellow card. There's about 90 seconds going on here. If that hadn't happened, I don't think the linesman would have put his hand up and said, listen, Barry, we need to talk about this decision that you've made here. If McConway had just been let go through and take the penalty, I think he would have taken the penalty, potentially scored, and the game would be over. Linesman raises the attention of Barry Tiernan. All of a sudden, it's no longer a penalty, and it's a free in the middle of the goals somehow. I'm not sure how it went from the side of the D, or the edge of the D, to the middle of the goals. Tullamore are going mad. They need a goal to win the game, go through to Leinster quarter-final. John Furlong takes the shot. It's saved simply enough. There's about 12 lads on the line, I'd say. And about 30 seconds later, the final whistle blows, and all hell breaks loose. A load of Tullamore lads around the referee. Doesn't look like anything is going to happen or anything like that, but they're all there in his face. And I know Paul McConway well, and he's as quiet a fella as you would ever meet. And the fact that he had lost the rag would definitely tell you how bad it was. But then, somebody comes in tracksuit and a hoodie, pushes the referee from behind, even though there's stewards around him, and that person is taken off the pitch or whatever. Really, really ugly kind of scenes. I'd imagine there's a fairly hefty ban going, because yes, it's a push on a referee. Depending on what the referee's report is, or whether the guards have been involved, this could be deemed an assault. So you don't know what's going to happen over the next while. And it says there's a bit more going on in the background than just simply a spectator coming in from the sideline and attacking a referee, and we'll have to see how that kind of plays out. But we talk about streaming services and how great it is to see the games. The fact that it was on Clubber as well makes sure that everybody was able to see what was going. Everybody was able to see the face of the perpetrator as well. So yeah, you're definitely going to be hearing a lot about this over the next couple of days.
Yeah, and it's just because there's more information than kind of currently meets the eye, it's very, very difficult one for us to comment on. So when we say there's sort of circumstances going on, it's not that we're trying to make an excuse for it. It's just, it's one of those ones where we have to walk on eggshells around. We can't really say much more, can we?
No. And it still, as I said, it doesn't get away from the fact that that sort of behaviour is just totally unacceptable on a GA field. And yeah, it's just, there's been a lot more of that type of thing in recent years, and it is worrying. I'm sure it'll be dealt with appropriately, but there are kind of circumstances around it that are kind of difficult to go into at the minute, just with regards to privacy and things like that or whatever. But I'm sure it will all come out in the wash in due course.
Yeah, Airog of Carlow, they beat St. Joseph's after extra time. We already kind of mentioned that they were Michael Dempsey's side. They put themselves 4 points up at the beginning of extra time, but to be fair to Airog, they clawed them back. They won by 2 points, and it was Joseph's first Leinster campaign in 23 years. Airog have been here before, so maybe that experience helped them get over the line here.
No, experience might have helped them. Fixture congestion, and as I call it in the paper on Saturday, a fixture hangover with a little double entendre on the word hangover. Definitely that would have played into it massively as well.
But if you go 4 points up in extra time, how much is the hangover really playing a part?
Yeah, fair point. Definitely looked like they were fairly goosed by the end of extra time, but they had themselves in a position to see it out, and they should have had. And my issue with it all is that it's just that takes away from the county final win now. Do you know what I mean? You should be able to bask in that for 10 days. Now it's all, yeah, they're out, I'm sure, having a few pints or whatever and enjoying themselves to some extent, but there's the cloud of we're gone and we've lost the game. And I just don't like the idea of someone who was a hero the week before could be the villain or could have, made some mistake the week after. You know what I mean? You should be able to bask in it and have your few pints boffrey or whatever it is, or a few orange juices or whatever it is for a while, not have to go out and play straight away again 6 days later as they had to.
So St. Lomans, they're also through. They beat Shelmaliers of Wexford 110-18. Cornerback Owen Hogan, he was the hero late on, scoring a goal. Very good performance by Shane Dempsey, but he was red carded in extra time for a high tackle on Simon Donoghue, so that's him probably gone for the next day. The Sligo football final saw Coolera Strand Hill beat St. Malas Gale 11 points to 8. I'm wondering am I pronouncing that correctly? Like, they've only just come up from intermediate last year, a first senior final in 45 years, so it's probably just not a team whose name I've heard mentioned out loud that many times. Like, I feel like I know of most clubs across the country, but would you be able to say for certain what the way that club name is pronounced?
I would have said it was Militia, but I could be wrong. It sounds more like an American female singer or something like that.
Niall Murphy, he scored 5 points, and that's their first title since 2005. The Kerry semi-final, so East Kerry 116, Rathmore 110. So they're back into the final for the fourth time in 5 years after beating, as we mentioned earlier, the All-Ireland Intermediate Club champions Rathmore. So I'm just wondering next year, like, how strong are East Kerry going to be next year? If Fossa win the intermediate title, not only will the Rathmore lads from last year, like Paul Murphy and Shane Ryan, be gone, you'll also be down the Cliffords, and I feel like there's somebody else as well that Fossa have that's involved. So that'll be like, there was 7 clubs represented by East Kerry, junior clubs or whatever, that played for East Kerry over the weekend. It was 8 last year if you include Rathmore. So surely they're going to kind of start to drop off a little bit if you take out the Cliffords and so on.
If you take out the Cliffords, they'll drop off massively. Shane, I think I was freezing there, so I'm going to kick myself out and come back in again and leave it to you for a second.
You're solid as a rock again, though. Okay, he's gone anyway. So David Clifford, he scored 1-3 in that game, including 1 from a free. Paddy Clifford and Dara Roach scored 4 points apiece. On the other side, Shane Ryan, he scored 6 points, 1 of those from play. The other semi-final saw Mid-Kerry beat Dingle 310 to 9 points. So there was 10 in it for a finish there. And Dingle finished with 13 men. And it's Mid-Kerry's third final in 4 years. Dingle had levelled the contest in the second half, but failed to score from the 33rd minute to the end. Once Mikey Gainey got a second yellow in the 44th minute, that was kind of that. And Mid-Kerry scored 2-3 in the final quarter. The Tipperary final over the weekend was a serious goal fest. Like, in total, what was scored in the game between the two teams was 8-13. But unfortunately for J.K. Bracken, 6-7 of that was for Clonmel Commercials. Sean O'Connor, obviously county player, he scored 2-3. Michael Quinlivan, he scored 1-2, and there was other few lads with goals. But Peter McGarry, who was a Tipperary under-20 hurler in the last couple of years, I don't know if you saw his goal where he slalomed through the defence and finished an absolute beauty.
I'll tell you something, Shano, if he hadn't finished in the net, there was a couple of boys inside going to take his head off, I'd say.
Yeah, and you know what? They might take the head off him anyway and say, look, we can't afford to have lads going glory hunting. It might come off this time. But if we're up against whoever in the Munster Championship, in a Munster final against Newcastle West or whoever, you need to be passing that ball and make sure of it.
What was the Monaghan defender's name that scored that deadly goal to knock Tyrone out of Ulster this year? Where again, it looked like a really, really low percentage shot. Very, very similar, actually. It looked like a really low percentage shot. Yeah, like, again, unless it hits the net, and even if it does hit the net, when it hits the net, there's very little you can say. But it definitely didn't look the right option at the time. I was like, what is he doing shooting from here? With a fella, like, clear, there was 2 fellas inside him, I'd say. It looked like a typical volleyball goal. That's the way it looked like it was going to be finished. But for the highlight reel, it definitely looks well that he finished in the net anyway.
Yeah, the Wicklow final saw Blessington draw with Rathnew. And there was actually confusion on the full-time whistle. And the teams went into the dressing room expecting maybe to be coming out for extra time. But eventually, it was announced over the PA that it would be going to a replay. And that will happen next Saturday. Kevin Quinn got a fourth, I think they led by a goal in the 4th minute for Blessington. And then James Stafford levelled with an inspirational score later on. The Dublin final over the weekend, well, this was yesterday, Sunday. Kilmacud Crokes 114, Ballyboden St. Enda's 9. And Boden were actually favourites going into this game. I don't know, was it because Craig Diaz wasn't playing, Ben Chauvin wasn't playing, so Crokes were down a few lads. They'd been thoroughly unimpressive as such heavy favourites against Raheny in the semi-final. But, Shane Walsh, 1-2. Paul Mannion, he scored 3 points, one man of the match. They had Shane Cunningham blasting over some great points here. And unfortunately for Bowden, they just couldn't quite keep into it. And once that goal came from Shane Walsh, which was breakaway goal from a turnover, looked a bit of a finish that had shades of Kevin McManaman against Kerry in 2013 when it felt like he placed it into the top corner, didn't blast it. There was a bit of that vibe to Shane Walsh's goal, and that was all she wrote.
Yeah, the way the odds were for this game, it seems to have been a bit like Ballyhale against Dixborough, where Dixborough nearly went into favouritism, and you're kind of thinking, oh, Kilmacud look like they're on their last legs here. Bowden are coming, really, really impressed up to this stage. But like I kind of said that I thought Kilmacud were timing it well the whole time, and then it was like, oh, the Raheny performance was like, just they should have been out here. There's the big difference between timing it well and just not performing, but they delivered their best performance of the year so far, and now they look like they're big contenders to win Leinster and All-Ireland honours potentially again later on this year. But like Walsh, who was a bit part player against Raheny, he got a couple of the crucial scores really, including that goal. But the game kind of looked like it was nearly done before the goal anyway. Like Kilmacud can be hammering you by 3 points. Yeah, that's a fact. Like they can be hammered. I remember when Coola gave him a right game, it was 14 points to 1-9. Maybe was it last year? I think it was last year actually. Yeah. And Coola were really good for long stages, but Crokes were 1 or 2 up, and you're just kind of thinking, oh, Coola can't win this game. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, that's the sign of a really, really good team, that they can be just winning by a score, but it can seem like 2 or 3 scores. And Michael Dara McCauley was taken off at half time for Bowden, and they just never really got motoring. Colin Pascal was kept under wraps as well, and the big players that they all needed to perform were relatively quiet, particularly when you compare to how they had been into this point in the championship.
Yeah, and that's in huge part down to Robbie Brennan and the team that he set up for Crokes. And to be without those players we've mentioned, highly impressive here. So, like some of the other lads who got their scores there, Mark O'Leary, Shane Horan, Aidan Jones, Dan O'Brien, Darren Mullen, Keane O'Connor. Like, you have a huge amount of lads stepping up with a point each there. Keane O'Connor's point late on was really, really good. So that's Bowden down. And, Shane Walsh is obviously like a game breaker here. His 1-2, you could arguably say he was the difference between the two teams, maybe Paul Mannion also. But obviously, I'm hinting at, an outsider coming in and doing so well. And look, I'm not taking a pop at an outsider. I haven't been a Shane Walsh now, but, I've been an outsider playing for another club. And then I look at the Monaghan final where Jack McCarran, who was playing with Curran up until this year, he's come on his first year with Scottstown. And it's their 8th football title in 11 seasons in Monaghan. But I suppose it'd be very easy to take a pop at him if you wanted, because, he's been playing with Curran up until this. But like his grandfather, is probably Scottstown royalty. His father had to, I think his grandfather emigrated then. His father came back and was with Scottstown. So it's in the family at the same time. I'm sure there are people locally who are very frustrated with, but it's not like he's got no ties to the club.
I knew there was something just not clicking with me. I looked at the back of the Independent and I saw a picture of Jack McCarran with his family, and it's just like, why have I not seen this before with Scottstown? And obviously a reason. And that transfer was refused before. Am I right in saying?
Can't remember that now.
Could be wrong, but to be able to add someone like that, like an inter-county class player, real good forward, into a team that are already serial winners. Basically, it's the exact same as. Yeah, Shane. It's the Shane Walsh kind of scenario with Kilmacud. You're adding in like one of the county's best players into a team or into an attack that is already humming and already has some really good players. And yeah, he made a massive difference yesterday.
Yeah, I was reading a piece that Carol Kane did with the manager. This is in the Irish News, and he was talking to the manager David McCaig, who said maybe it wasn't. And this is with McCarran scoring 329 in the championship. Maybe it wasn't easy in terms of some of the noise around the move from Curran to Scottstown, but that was something, an ambition he had from when he was very young. His father is a Scottstown legend, and I'm delighted for Jack today. He gets a chance to share that moment with his mother and father, who maybe it wasn't easy for them either. That's a special moment for them, and delighted he has that moment. So in a scheme, it's a tough one on them, right, because they're in the final for the first time in 75 years. John McEntee, he's over the team. Previously, it was Oisin and McConville, and they'd obviously all know each other very well. It was their first final since 1990. So that'd be a very bitter pill to swallow. Hopefully, from their sake, they can get back there and have another go again.
Yeah, no, without a doubt, yeah. It just like Scottstown are a powerhouse, like really, really, like, and they're coming up against very good opposition every year. Obviously, you have Clonlara in around there as well, but like I said, getting in someone like Jack McCarron, maybe that'll be the difference. Maybe potentially that could get them over the line in an Ulster Championship this year. But there's a fair whack of big hitters. In that Ulster Championship. If you look at the amount of, I'm right in saying I think 7 of the 9 from last year have retained. Crossmaglen, Glen are obviously in the final. Derry Gonley, Naomh Connell, who we'll go on to in a minute, really dominant performance against Guidor. Scottstown, you have a lot of, like, it's like the Ulster Football Championship. You have a lot of big hitters. Kilcoo obviously in down as well. Like, Jesus, like, you're talking about some of the best clubs in the country here, all vying for, only one of them can survive.
River Power driving the boot into me. Bursley hammered by double scores by Ballina in the North Under 21A quarter-final last night. Where's it all going wrong? Bit harsh. He's just looking to wind me up. But of course, I've seen all this crack before. I'm not going to respond to it. The Galway semi-finals, Carfin beat Milltown 3-12 to 2-12. I don't know, did you see one of the clips? We've shared it there on the OurGame X page. Just the goalkeeper, sun in his eyes. Maybe the defender could have helped him out, but it was like a nothing free that was dropping right into his hands. But I mean, if the goalie couldn't see it, he couldn't see it.
It was a terrible free as well. It was 30 yards out, and it was completely mishit. Am I right in saying that they were 3-5 to 4 points up when that goal went in?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Like, they fell over the line by the looks of things then, because they finished 3-12 to 2-12. That was a big difference. I don't know. In that sort of instance, I don't even know if he had a hat on, actually. I don't think he did have a peaked hat on, which you normally would kind of in that scenario. But like, they did fair well to come back and make it as competitive as they did, considering, that would completely deflate you, conceding a goal like that. And it looked like they were 10 down at the time and dead and buried. They came back and made a really, really good game of it. And then in the other semi-final on the Saturday, finished Mike Cullen 11, Mountbellion, my lot, 9 points. Obviously a battle of the last 2 county champions here.
Well, they won the last 3 between them. Let me just tell you who has 2. Mike Cullen had 2, Mountbellion had 1.
Yeah, obviously that was their first county final last year. Mike Cullen's, and they kicked on to win the Connacht as well. And
no, Mike Cullen had 1, 2 of the last 3.
Okay, yeah, sorry. And Mountbellion, my lot, dethroned Corofin before that. Yeah, I was just chatting to Morris Brosnan yesterday. The Examiner actually was just watching the semi-final. He just said that Johnny Maloney from Offaly was probably the second best player on the field. Like, if you're like the same as Jack McCarron and same as Shane Walsh, if you're a big team and you're getting in a big player from another club, like, they're strong already. I think he started wing forward but went back wing back. I think Sean Kelly started centre forward for them, who obviously we know as full back for Galway. But they're going to be hard beaten in that final against Corofin, and potentially they could be hard beaten beyond that as well.
Yeah, the Loud final saw RD beat Naomh Martin. That was 15 points to 111. Having waited 27 years to win the title, RD, they've made it 2 in a row. Kildare final, Naas 13, Selbridge 11. Played in Netwatch Dr. Cullen Park. Now, I know Newbridge is being done up, but it's a fairly poor sign of the setup within a county when you don't have anywhere at all to play a county final other than having to go outside the boundary lines.
Yeah, it's brutal. And you're looking at pretty wealthy county by all accounts. It's not like they're not minnows, like, do you know what I mean? They're not a Division 4 county. They're one of the bigger hitters on the football scene. But like, I always like covering games in Conlitz and Newbridge, but it's fairly backward. Like, for a county ground, like, it's fairly old school.
In the press box. I haven't been out there for a couple of years, but I mean,
Shane, I'd be straight with you, and you were slagging off the artificial goal mouths in Brennan's Park, but Brennan's Park is a better setup than Newbridge, and Brennan's Park is a club ground, and that's a fact.
And the worst before, other than that, I can think of, and I haven't been there since 2014, I think, or 15, the Gaelic grounds in Drogheda. Christ Almighty, it was brutal.
Yeah, not great. And I think the semi-finals were played in Hawkfield, I think, but it's not somewhere you play a county final. But it's a fair indictment of a county that they don't have a handy little 7,000 or 8,000 stadium with a decent stand and good terracing to play a county final in. It's not hectic. And even I wonder, did it take anything away from the teams involved? Probably not. They probably don't care. P-Well 74, Offaly man calls Kildare backwards. Now, let's call a spade, P-Well, for the resources that they have and their proximity to Dublin. Their facilities are very, very poor. And you'd wonder about what they're putting in place as well. Like, I don't know, what they're putting in place with Newbridge when it's going to be finished maybe wouldn't blow you away as well. For a county the size of Kildare, you'd think they maybe should have something a bit bigger, a bit more kind of standing to it or whatever. But Naas won't really care, I'd say, this morning. They beat Micheál McDermott's Selbridge team, denied him that 5th county title in 5 different counties. And like, they're the classic case of a team with loads of ability, unable to get over the line. They part ways with their manager mid-season, and there's a massive hoo-ha. Owen Doyle and Eamon Callan take on the side to get over the line. Eventually, first time in was the guts of 30 years was 1990, and now they've 3 in a row. Like, it's a savage achievement for them. And it looked like the game was kind of going away from them at one stage near the end, but that kind of wiliness, that experience, that know-how to get over the line at the end, from those results in recent years, obviously stayed with them. And Owen Doyle, who's obviously, Kildare captain a few years back and Naas captain, he just said these are the best times of our lives, and they've become the first Kildare club to win 3 in a row since Sarsfields did it in the 1950s. And they did back-to-back, or they did the double, obviously, in hurling and football. 5 hurling. Yeah, 5 hurling in a row, and now 3 football. So 3 times together. It's a fair achievement.
Yeah, and I'd say their biggest challenge, given the numbers that they're probably working with, is having enough grounds to be able to train and accommodate all these players, which is a great problem to have. It's not a criticism. People can be sensitive when you say that, but no, it's not a criticism. Johnny Doyle, who, of course, is a Kildare legend in his own right, of course, probably one of the greatest players they've ever had. 45 years of age, put in a man-of-the-match performance, scored 3 points, 2 of them were frees, as Allen would beat Castledermot in the intermediate football final there. A 63rd minute point from substitute Jack O'Brien secured the title, and they've got a quarter-final in Leinster coming up against St. Malachy's of Westmeath in a couple of weeks' time. But yeah, brilliant stuff for Johnny Doyle. I think it was something like, was it 21 or 2 years ago that he led Allenwood to the senior title, and now he's still, producing the heroics here at the intermediate level. Absolutely no end to him, and he's just an icon, isn't it? I don't know if it's the little kind of the grey patch on the head as well. Everything about him, like, is just iconic. Like, and he'd gone on. I think he missed a game last year, and it was the first game he'd missed in the guts of 2 decades or something like that, I think. What an unbelievable warrior! He was an unbelievable warrior for Kildare, unbelievable warrior for Allenwood, and just great pictures of him celebrating. I think it was on the front of our paper today, actually, celebrating with the goalkeeper, and it just looked like he just. Everyone is rooting for a lad like that, actually. It's just like one of the most thoroughly likable players in that's playing GA for the last 20 or 30 years. And yeah, no doubt he'll soak that one in. Yeah, there he is. He put up a tweet himself. 1 club, 1 family. So he's delighted with that, of course. In the Galway final, Donegal final, I should say, this was on TG Carr yesterday. And it was a bit of a one-sided affair. Naomh Conaill 116, Guido 18. And kind of, I'm looking for things to talk about. Kieran Thompson, very good. He scored 3 points. Ethan O'Donnell, man of the match from wing back. He was very good. 7th straight Donegal final for them, and they won the titles in 2019, 20, and last year during that spell. They had 11 different scorers, goal coming from Charlie McGuinness in the second half. But the only thing that really stood out for me from the game, I suppose, as a neutral, brilliant for Naomh Conaill, don't get me wrong. I remember one time during the second half, they hit the woodwork 3 times in a row. Kieran Thompson had a long-range pointed attempt, came off the right post. Can't remember who had the other chances, but there was a goal attempt that the goalkeeper tipped onto the crossbar. And then another pointed attempt from the right side across the goal, hit the left post. Surely that's never been done before. 3 shots, hitting 3 parts of the woodwork from the same team, 3 shots in a row. That's mad, isn't it? There's actually a lad from my hometown, Joey Regan's his name, but he hit a post twice in the one game, and forevermore he became known as Joey the Post. Very good, very good. Funny, actually, the keeper for Clonlara yesterday was called Clangers. That was his nickname. I only heard it in an interview, and I'm just like, geez, I presume it's like self-explanatory, is it? Guido were actually beaten. You might be able to get an up, Shane, on Kevin Cassidy's Twitter there. He put up a nice message as well. It's kind of the flip side of Johnny Doyle's. But Guido were actually beaten in the Senior B final yesterday, which is a bit kind of sick to lose to kind of 2 county finals in one day. But there's just a lovely picture of Kevin walking down the tunnel in
up in Donegal after the county final, and it just reads, you win some, you lose some, but we had some journey all the same since 1998. I would be eternally grateful for what Guido GA gave me. The future is bright. So that kind of looks like a retirement statement from Kevin, who we only had on the show last Thursday. But they'll be disappointed now this morning. Double kind of dissatisfaction, I suppose, on a Monday morning.
Yeah, I actually got a bit of a land there during the second half when I saw a substitute come on and score a goal for Guido, Fergal Delaney, and realised that when I spent a summer hurling in New York in 2010, he was out there and kind of hanging out with some of the groups. So happy enough for him when he bundled one home. I'm pretty sure now, you know what you'd forget after 13 years, pretty sure that he's from Meath anyway, so fair play to him, he scored a goal there. Senior B final in Donegal, then Guido, which Kevin Cassidy was involved in, they finished with 5 points. Ballyshannon won 6, so a tough day at the office for them, and great one for Ballyshannon. The Armagh final, Crossmaglen 2-16, Clonlara 1-7, so this was fairly one-sided traffic. An 18th county title for Aaron Kernan, that is unbelievable sledding for an outfield player.
Yeah, just got the key to it, I think, is the last couple of words you said there. For an outfield player, like, to still be doing it on the pitch, and don't get me wrong, I'm not taking that away from keepers, or not taking that away from Paul Hirty. Has 19, has he?
I think it's 19,
Aaron Kernan's gunning for him, and if an outfield player is able to equal that record that a keeper holds, like, by all accounts, from any bits I saw, he looks as fit as ever and is still contributing handsomely. And that left foot is only getting finer. It's like a fine wine. It's only getting better with age now at this stage. Though that's what I said. Even I always say it to you, and you just say it back to me as well. When you have like something like that, it's like in hurling. If you're a lovely ball striker, there'll always be a place for you. Do you know? Aaron Kernan can kick frees until the cows come home, until he's 45. Do you know what I mean? There'll always be a place for him on a football pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. So their former captain, Anthony Cunningham, he took over from Stephen Kernan, so I'm sure he's absolutely delighted to steer them over the line there, and they'll look forward to the Ulster Championship, which is coming up pretty soon. A black card shown to Kieran Campbell early in the second half really kind of did for Clonlara in this particular match. You've already mentioned it, the Fermanagh final saw Derry Connolly Harps beat Erngale's Balik. That was 2-8 to 9. Goals from Gary McKenna and Shane McGullion very much kind of decided that one. And they'll have a preliminary Ulster clash against Down Kingpins Kilcoo on November 5th. Like, having watched Derry Connolly a couple of times in the Ulster Championship in recent years, they've always been quite impressive. So I'd expect a good game there. Remember that famous interview with one of the Brannigans? It's hard to remember which one. Maybe Darrell Brannigan talking about, we've got very little going on except sheep and football. That was after that brilliant game against Derry Connolly. So I don't know if there's been a few players that have retired. I think there's a couple of old stagers playing with Derry Connolly since, but I'd expect a decent match there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And Derry Connolly were beaten handsomely enough in Ulster maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and then they gave Kilcoo lots of it in that game that you mentioned there. So I'm sure that'll be a tight enough game again. In Cavan, this was one-way traffic, even though it didn't look like it after the first quarter. Gowna retained their title. It was Gowna 5-15, Kings scored Stars 13 points, Tiernan Madden hit 2-4. They'll face Naomh Conaill next month at the quarterfinal stage. I think they actually trailed after 15 minutes, and then all of a sudden all these goals started going in. And something that we didn't actually tee up in the preview show, I hadn't realised that Jordan Morris, that plays with Meath, is playing with Kings Court Stars. He was brought up with them, or was he brought up? He played with Nobber for a while anyway. He transferred back to Kings Court a couple of years ago, and he was top scorer for Kings Court yesterday. But I was just reading an interview in the Independent the other day, which said like there's never any hope of him going back to or going transferring to Cavan or anything like that. He's a Meath man through and through. But he started off with Kings Court, went to Nobber, where he might have been living, and they're obviously Nobber. Yeah, and they're obviously very close proximity, and he transferred back to Kings Court. It looks like he's going to finish his career there. He's only like 23. Looks like he's going to play out, for next decade or so with Kings Court. But they had a tough afternoon yesterday. Gowna were really on top, and I saw quote flying around there from Fintan Riley. I think it was Fintan Riley, the Gowna manager, saying that they were written off all year. Like, Jeannie Mac, you're defending champions, lads. If you're written off all year, like it only takes one comment for that. Like, who was I listening to yesterday?
For Kilkenny, give it 10 years at.
Yeah, I was listening to there's a kind of video going around there of Johnny Sexton and Cora Staunton in conversation. And Johnny would say, like Cora said about looking for motivation when she broke her leg. She said there was a load of people saying, "Oh, you'll get back," and all this kind of get back better than ever, even though she was 37. But some fella in the club said, "Oh, she's going to struggle to get back," and he just said it like making a past remark. And she was like, "I'm going to prove him wrong. If it's the last thing I do, I'm going to prove him wrong. He probably doesn't even know I'm trying to prove him wrong, but I'm going to prove him wrong." And Johnny Sexton then said, on top of that, he said, there could be 150 really good articles about him saying he's the best, whatever, and he'll find that one that makes some sort of cutting remark, and that's all he will. That's all he will remember. So it's amazing. They could have been written off only in one quarter, and that's the one. That's the one that you'll take notice of. But listen, whatever floats your boat, whatever motivation you need.
Well, Johnny Sexton won't get much motivation out of the Irish rugby media because they're all patting him on the head for the last 15 years, and I don't see anyone talking about the handy penalty that he missed in the second half that potentially could have won the game for Ireland against New Zealand. So
I think
you'll have to come and listen to a bit of Irish GA analysis.
Brian O'Driscoll mentioned it, in fairness to him, after. I think he said that will be something he'll look back on with great regret or whatever. But I know what you're saying.
Like, he has to score. Like, I hope he finds motivation, comes back in 4 years at the age of 42 and wins the World Cup for Ireland. But like, you can't miss that.
He's retired now, Shano. He's gone anyway. So
we've seen lads come out of retirement before. Did you hear about Tom Brady, who came back and won a Super Bowl?
Did you ever hear of a guy named Tom Brady?
Okay, then the Roscommon final. 2 years in a row that Doyle, who haven't won a title since, is it 1927? Sometime ridiculously long time. They had a late rally, but St. Bridget's held them off 12 points to 11 there. So that's a very tough one. They had a chance to force extra time at the last kick of the game, but Keane McKeown underhit his free. It's a tough one for them. And St. Bridget's, they've obviously been down this route before, so they'll have a little burst in the Connacht Championship, no doubt. Waterford semi-finals. I wonder how many people in Waterford actually care, never mind beyond. The Nair, they beat Kilrossenty 116 to 9 points there, 10 points from Shane O'Mara. They're through to the Waterford final for the 7th time in 10 years. Rathgormack will meet them there, 114 to 2-9 win over on Rin. Conor Murray, he hit 3 points there. There was a late rally from an injury ravaged on Rin, but they'll meet the Nair in the final. The Limerick semi-finals, they saw Newcastle West beat Monaleen and Adair beat Father Casey's after extra time.
Just a big one there, or just to say a big one. Just a note there on the goal scorer in the Newcastle West game, Mike McMahon. He trains with Ireland's strongest man. He's 6'7". He's an absolute tank. I remember doing a piece of him last year, and there's a picture of him pulling a tractor across like a courtyard. He's an absolute animal. I can't think of the Ireland's strongest man name. It's Pa something. Can't think of his name. But Big Mike is touching 40 nearly, or close to 40. But he's a massive, massive handful at the edge of the square for Newcastle West.
Is it Pa O'Dwyer?
Pa O'Dwyer is the man, like he's huge, like he's an absolute tank. And Mike McMahon is probably only in the halfpenny place in comparison to him, but he's still a monster on the GA pitch.
Yeah, a reminder, if you want to get the audio podcast, go to patreon.com/OurGame. Also, if you want to do a club fundraiser, get onto us at events at ourgame.ie. We'll sort that out for you. Also, if you want to host a coaching clinic, again, events at ourgame.ie. Very easy to set that up as well, and they're always brilliant.
Yeah, great comment in here from CTG. Just says Johnny Doyle will be up against 43-year-old former Westmeath player Alan Mangan, the Buddha who plays in goals for St. Malachy's. So yeah, two legends of their club and county coming up against each other. Okay,
we've come to that time of the show. Go to the week. As ever, it's probably slipped both of our minds.
No. The second he was mentioned, it had to be him. Johnny Doyle is the football goat of the week by some distance, I would say. And from a hurling point of view, I'd probably go with Michael O'Loughlin from Clonlara, 2-9 in the county final. He absolutely lit it up. So they'll be my two goats.
Yeah, I'm trying to see, is there anybody who's not overly obvious? I don't want to just repeat the guys that you've said. Do you know what? Colin Galvin, given the amount of injury issues he's had in recent years and the amount of pain that club, Clonlara, have had in terms of, like, had all this talent, you kept slating them and they've finally proven you wrong. So I'm going to go with them. And on the football side of things, maybe just try and see if I can find somebody that isn't the obvious one. It's, Johnny McDoyle or Johnny Doyle, very, very deserving there. I go with Shane Walsh. Sure, he never wins any awards.
No, yeah, the way to go away from the obvious one. I thought you were going to go maybe looking at Clonlara or something like that, maybe. But no, you've stated the obvious.
Absolutely, the way I like to do. Okay, I think that's it from the show again this week. We'll be back Thursday. We're always back every Monday and every Thursday. So please join in the conversation then. Michael, take her handy, and we'll chat to you soon.
Cheers, Shadow.